All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Green White Checker TV. Tonight we have the Dark Horse Racing Area 51 Indy Series here tonight at Homestead Miami Speedway. And so qualifying just kicking off right now. As you can see, it's going to be a night race this evening, so track temperature will be a non-issue tonight. Already at 66 degrees track temperature, actually, so it's going to be nice and cool. Plenty of grip for the drivers here. So we're going to kick things off right off the bat here with my partner in crime, and that is going to be Steve Gottschalk. So Steve, we see you on board here. We're going to hop on with you, and let's take a few laps around this track and kind of see what you found in practice and what these guys are going to be watching out for tonight.
Okay, so right now I'm actually in qual trim, and we're gonna do a qual lap and see how it goes, and then or actually a qual 2 laps, and then I'll discuss the race trim. But basically, in either one, if you're by yourself, you can run flat out on any line on the track. Hopefully, I'm gonna get a good line for my official qual lap here. Although nobody will know what it is.
You'll know.
I could just make something up.
Whatever it is, there's a 10 faster than the pole.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But yeah, so something interesting about Homestead, as I'm sure many are aware of, is the progressive banking. So you see right there, Steve, kind of running the low on the entry and then moving it back up. But basically, as you start moving up the track, the banking progressively gets a little steeper. It gives you just that little bit extra grip at the kind of the going against the grain, though, of having to then be running a further distance around the track. So that's going to be one big thing to see what grooves these guys run tonight. But I say, Steve, you're driving up to, I think, what's going to be possibly the most important part tonight, and that's going to be pit road entry, because it's right here entering turn number 3. These drivers are going to have to use the access road for green flag pit stops, which fuel window is going to be around the mid to low 30s from hearing from the drivers here tonight. So I think that's going to be the key as well, getting it down to speed without overdriving and washing back up onto the grass.
Yeah, and both the entrance and the exit are extremely treacherous because first of all, it's flat. Secondly, it's the access roads are not that wide, and there's not as much grip as you have on the track. So if you try and give it too much gas with too much wheel in it, you're going to end up either sliding up onto the track or spinning out into the inside grass. So it's very tricky. And I should note I did a 25.031, which would put me third on the grid right now. Well, fourth. All right, so here's what I discovered out there running around with these guys in race trim. Um, there's a lot of aero in these cars, and although you can go flat out by yourself in pretty much any groove you want, once you are behind a few cars, you start having to let off, and where you let off, where you get back on is going to be extremely important, especially in 3 and 4, because the car wants to push up into the wall in the middle of the turn and on exit, depending on how you take it. So I did notice that if you play with the gas, you can take pretty much any line and be fairly competitive. The other thing I noticed, if you're going to pass somebody, you pretty much need to pass them on the inside. But you can get a tremendous run with that draft coming off the turns and jump under someone if you're quick enough. So that part's good. The other thing is the outside is better in 1 and 2 than it is in 3 and 4. I found that I was running with Jack Walls in practice, and I found that I could pretty much stay even with him on the outside when he was out on the inside in 1 and 2, but in 3 and 4 he just dusted me every time.
Yeah, that's really good info, and that's another thing to mention as well as with this track. Even with these cars kind of being a matching, looking like it's an identical oval here, turns 1 and 2, 3 and 4 actually do drive a lot differently. Especially, obviously, we're familiar on the more on the stock car side of things, but 1 and 2 is definitely a faster turn. 3 and 4 is a little bit. You have to be a little slower through there. And I think, like you said, maybe running those different lines, the top, the bottom, might be one of those things where, like you said, a high line might work better in one turn than another turn. So I think that's going to be another thing for these drivers to be aware of here this evening. So with that, qualifying has just completed. So we're going to pull up our starting grid for tonight's event. And on pole position is going to be the 007 of Henry Bennett tonight. And then next to him is going to be Andrew Wood in the 64 machine. And I say both those drivers missed last week, but let's say kind of jumping back on where they left off with some great qualifying laps. You got Matt Wagner there in third, just ahead of Jari Brupacher, Craig Forsyth, Charles T round out row number 3. And you got Nick DeGroot, our championship leader, in 7th, Jeff Heisong, AJ Hobson, Jim Brooks rounding out our top 10. Then 11th and 12th, you've got Scott Rankin, Thaddeus McMurray. Keep working on down here. And then you've got Michael Spell, Jimmy Dryden, Carl Henderson, Josh Lassen, David Leclerc, and then the final drivers that have did not put in any times, though, are going to be Jack Walls, James Ledford, and Don Reedy. So should give us 20 drivers, I believe, that will be taking part in tonight's event. We'll have to see if everybody does grid or not for that one, but as you see, our front row is just kind of poked in here, so they are ready to go here, say, with that 007 and that 64 of Henry Bennett and Andrew Wood.
Kyle, I want you to tell us what the point situation looks like right now.
All right, so point situation right now is looking good. If you are Nick DeGroot, I'll actually get that pulled up here just a moment.
And Nick DeGroot should be looking good because 3 wins and a decent finish on the road course last week. So but it looks like he's definitely got some work to do this week, starting in 7th place.
Yeah, exactly right. And so going into it, Nick DeGroot with those 3 wins in the 4 races, an 83-point lead, Steve, over Henry Bennett. Jari Brupacher, he actually jumped up a spot into 3rd. Matt Wagner with his run gets up into 4th, and then Jeff Heisong drops to 5th there. But yeah, I mean, an 83-point lead right now for Nick DeGroot. Again, the only thing though is it looks great, and I mean, you love having this points lead, but they've got 3 more races, including tonight, and then they go into the final 4 race playoffs. So I'll say obviously it feels pretty much like he's probably locked into it, but then he's going to have 4 near perfect races, almost like he's pretty much had these first 4. Kind of needs to replicate on these on the final 4 of the season as well.
How do the playoffs work?
So it's going to be the best, basically the best overall through the 4 races. So it won't be a winner take all finale. It'll be the top 8 drivers will be advancing into it. I believe it's points only. It's not a win and you get in. I'll have to find out about the bonus points side of things, if bonus points move you forward at all or not. But the final 4 races will be Kansas, Phoenix, Twin Ring, Motegi, and Indianapolis Motor Speedway as the finale. So, but yeah, it's going to be a lot to try to keep after here. But we got 3 more races, including tonight, before we get to those final 4. So with that, though, you see the pace car is going to make the sharp left onto pit road, I should say. That's going to hand it over to that 007 of Henry Bennett, the 64 of Andrew Wood. And green flag is out, and we are down and away. 100 laps is the scheduled distance here tonight at Homestead Miami Speedway, as Henry Bennett takes the lead in turn number 1.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see the inside line dominate through turn 1 and 2.
Oh, we got trouble right off the back. Multiple cars involved there. And I say that's going to bring out the yellow right off the bat here. And it looks like some big names here right off the bat as well we're just talking about. So you've got Jari Brupacher's in here, Scott Rankin, Josh Lassen, Carl Henderson as well, Cup. So a lot of drivers here right away. Jari Brupacher jumping straight to the pits here, but unfortunately, yeah, a lot of damage for these drivers. You see them trying to find the way, see if they can limp this thing as best they can to the pits. But unfortunately, early caution here. We'll go back. We'll try to see what exactly happened there, Steve. That was off of out of 2 down the backstretch there.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out right now.
Let's say we saw Jari Brupacher involved in saying he was one of the furthest up qualifiers. So we're going to jump over to Jari here, see if we can get a good look. Oops, as I go to the wrong incident here.
It looks like it may have started with Thaddeus McMurray and whoever was outside him.
Yeah, so I'm watching Jari here. As he comes out of turn number 2. He's right behind Nick DeGroot. Oh, I think he actually just gets loose out of turn 2 and comes right across the nose of that 4 machine of AJ Hobson. And yeah, say, and then from there, so I think then further back, cars are kind of reacting to it because you can already see the '09 already caught up with something. So we'll go back and try to take a better look as well a little further on here. And actually, I see a little bit of connectivity issue, Steve, which is always a concern, especially on these starts. So you see the 42 just to the inside of the '09. I'm sure they see the wreck in front of them, and then you see that the 37 car, I believe it is, kind of just pops up in frame there, right in front of Josh Lassen, and at the same time you see the contact between that 42, and trying to catch the other car that was in that one. I think that is. Who's the other car? Is that Jim Brooks possibly in there? It looks like a green and black car, if I'm not mistaken, and I am mistaken actually. So say you can see them all heading down to the inside wall there, though. Oh, I think that was Scott Rankin I was just mentioning. Yeah, Scott Rankin. I apologize. So I mean, that's about 5-6 cars right off the bat here, Steve, and then a lot of them still in the pits as well. So just early incident here. And yeah, I mean, that's got now multiple drivers here, at least one, if not two laps down. Right now, I think they're all actually still sitting on pit road, with Josh Lassen actually, I think, is the first to get back out on track. So he'll be just one down. So he'll actually have a lap advantage over his kind of his competition of Jari Brubacher, AJ Hobson, Scott Rankin, Carl Henderson. So really tough start, though, for those 5 or 6 drivers here.
Holy cow, I'm watching it through Josh Lassen's in-car, and I'm not sure who the red car was ahead of him. Maybe that was Status. That car disappeared somewhere around the middle of turns 1 and 2. And there was a good distance between him and Josh. So Josh, I'm sure, felt it was safe to stay on the gas full throttle. And as he's exiting turn 2, all of a sudden there's this red car like right in front of him. He couldn't miss it.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's exactly what you just talked about is, say, unfortunately, when you get those connectivity issues, it puts you in a pretty bad spot. So you see all these drivers, they have hopped back on track here. However, I believe they might already be trapped 3 laps down, if I'm not mistaken. So really tough breaks for these guys. Let's say as Henry Bennett's still obviously showing as our leader, and of course now will have control of this restart, which I believe will probably get the one to go here, Steve. And yeah, sure enough, we do here. But yeah, just really tough start to the race there. And I guess you have to wonder if that's maybe cold tires. Is that just while the car's still building up speed, so easier to lose traction when you're kind of full throttle out of turn number 2 there, or even maybe he was kind of running the seam between the 2 different bankings. We know these cars very sensitive to that banking transition, so unfortunately, a lot of cars caught out on that one though.
Yeah, and actually, it looks like there was 3 separate incidents that happened all at once. Because I'm looking at the Jari Brubacher AJ Hobson incident that was completely separate from the others.
Yeah, exactly right. So right now, say that after all that, it leaves us now 15 of our 20 drivers here, Steve, back on the lead lap. Say Josh Lassen 1 down, and actually Jari Brubacher on back 2 laps down, not 3. So say they're still in a contention spot, but it's going to be very difficult. They'll need some yellows, and they'll need. Say it's going to be a big fight though between 17th on back to be able to get into that lucky dog position. So, however, back up front though, it's going to be Henry Bennett that's going to have control of this restart. We'll watch off the back of that 007 because now he's got control of when he wants to go. Up to Matt Wagner to try to respond as quick as possible. And he is down and away as we head back to green here, starting lap number 6.
So, from what you said in the points before, this is going to be painful for Jari.
Yeah, this could be a big hit for Jari. I mean, we'll have to see how the race pans out, but you can see right away Henry Bennett's going to go straight to the inside. Matt Wagner's trying to work the upper groove here. We can see the momentum, though, on the inside line while they still build speed. And even it looks like a lot of aero push right there, if I'm not mistaken, by Matt Wagner coming out of turn number 4. You can see that's really separated them back again here as they go back into turn number 1 here.
Yeah, he may have just been fairly conservative there on the cold tires because, he should be able to stay close enough to get a run on Henry Bennett with just 1 car ahead of him.
Yeah, right now one of our closer battles is right here. We got a 3-car battle. Craig Forsyth in front, but then you got Nick DeGroot right behind him. Charles Teed's right there now as well. Charles Teed actually starting to put a little bit of pressure on Nick DeGroot, Charles running the low side, Nick running the top side. So you talked about Steve 1 and 2. You felt like the top had more to work with up top than in 3 and 4. So we'll see here. And as saying, actually, you can see again here, Charles right on the white line and gets a great run out of turn number 4 here, right to the side of that 89. Saying just like that, Nick's now all over the 27 of Craig Forsyth. I'll say kind of a change of battles there for just that split second here. So now it's going to be the 89 that's going to duck to the inside of the 27 here through 3 and 4 as they're going to come out pretty much side by side here out of turn 4.
Yep, and so far, Craig Forsyth is doing a good job of making the outside work. He just really squeezed Nick down there, 22, which I'm sure is making it a little bit tough for Nick to stay on it as much as he needed to make that pass.
Yeah, up front though, Henry Bennett starting to sneak away with that clean air. Matt Wagner now, he's got a mirror full of that 64 of Andrew Wood. As you see, Andrew's peeking underneath here in turn 1 and 2. Not quite enough there. But I say Matt's going to have a lot of pressure. Then there he goes. He's going to take a look here, entering turn number 3. And I say we'll see if maybe this is the place where that inside prevails over the outside line. But right now they hold pretty steady. And I say it looks like Andrew's going to have a nose ahead here at the line. He does get the spot at the line, but we'll see if he can complete that pass.
Yeah, this is pretty much, it looks like what I was doing with Jack Wallace in practice.
You saw it right there as well. We hopped to Matt's onboard there for just that split second. And as soon as Andrew Wood got in front of that 11 machine of Matt Wagner, Matt had to immediately lift off the throttle just to show how bad that aero push is with these cars here tonight at Homestead. So I think that's going to, again, show how critical that this, having the track position, having clean air is going to be on the front wing of your cars is going to be tonight. As you see now Matt Wagner trying to make a push back on that 64 Andrew Wood. And I don't know, with here being at Homestead, I say obviously it's shorter straightaways compared to a track like Indy, for instance. But you do wonder at some point, is there any way for drivers to maybe try to gain track position on those in front of them by working together, maybe doing kind of what we call the leapfrog approach, where you pass each driver in the straightaway, then go back and kind of back and forth. But right now, Andrew Wood, he's kind of snuck away a little bit. So we're going to jump back now to Charles Teed, who's, I'd say, because while we're talking about that, Nick DeGroot has gotten around Craig Forsyth, and now it's Charles Teed trying to see if he can put the pressure back on that 27 as well.
And he's got a good run underneath him.
Yeah, the great run out of turn 4. He's going to have the inside line here for turn 3. We'll see if that's what he needs. You see Craig there just drifting back just a little bit. I think probably a little bit of a give there by Craig from what it looked like there. But as I say that, here goes Craig. He's going to jump back to the inside here, entering turn number 1. And so you can see, though, not quite enough to clear that number 50 machine. You can see his nose is just ahead out of 4, but now Charles is going to get the momentum back down the front.
I have to wonder if some of these guys are being a little bit conservative, either to save their tires, or if they're looking at their fuel and not wanting to burn too much of it right now.
Yeah, I mean, right now this battle for fifth position doesn't look to be like any fuel saving going on between the two of these guys. They're going at it pretty heavy right now. Lap times do need to mention, though, Andrew Wood actually about a 10th quicker than Henry that last time around, as Craig takes that 5th position here out of turn 2. Oh, we got one spinning to the infield. I think that was the 88 of Michael Spell from I saw just outside the view there, and sure enough it is. So unfortunately, Michael Spell, a big shot to that inside wall here. He's going to try to limp this car to the pits with some serious left side damage to that car. I'm going to jump back, see if we can get a look to see what happened exactly to Michael here. So you can already see the contact already happening. So we'll jump back a little further. I think one thing I am watching here, right, Steve, as I watch from this chopper view, is he is right on the seam here as he comes out of turn number 2, and it just snaps on him like we saw a little earlier. So I'm wondering if that seam might be a danger spot for these guys tonight. That might be what we saw there, as you can see the 88 with pretty solid contact to the inside wall. So we'll jump back live yet once more here, as he has made it to pit road. So that's job number 1 for him. Let's say that battle between Craig and Charles is pretty continuing on still as well here. But right now, Steve, I'll say again, hopefully no commentator's curse, but right now a big mover here is that 67 of David Leclerc. He has jumped 9 spots from his starting position here tonight. And I'm saying he's been one that we've talked about where he always has lots of pace, but unfortunately just either mistakes or getting caught up in incidents kind of ruin his race. But right now a great start for him in that 67.
Yeah, definitely. That's a nice game for him. And I think he tends to do pretty well at these faster tracks.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's got kind of a knack for just these cars or the way these cars are at these faster tracks like you mentioned right now. And saying that being said, the field definitely spread out a little bit. Just saw right now James Ledford just got around Jack Walls. That's going to move James now up into the 11th spot in that 48 machine. Actually now 9 spots gained for him as well. Jack's actually gained 7 from his starting spot, so a couple early movers. Of course, some taking advantage of the incidents earlier on. And then also on that front right now, nothing has changed really with the Lucky Dog situation. Josh Lassen still kind of on his own here. The only car 1 lap down at the moment, because with Michael Spell, he's actually down a couple of laps here, unfortunately. And then the battle for 2 down is right now with AJ Hobson just a little bit ahead of Jari Brubacher, who's just holding off Carl Henderson. So right now that's going to be a pretty good battle between those guys. But yeah, right now I'd say looking at lap times, and everybody's pretty equal here. Pretty much you can see the intervals on the left, Steve. I'd say everybody's within about a second and a half of one another. But right now, I'd say the closest battle here still seems to be actually Jack Walls now starting to put some pressure on Thaddeus McMurray. We'll hop on board with James here to watch him try to make that gain here down the backstretch, maybe take a look in 3.
I'm surprised at how spread out they've gotten.
And I think it might be the aero, Steve, like we talked about. I think maybe just that aero is keeping these cars as separated as they are. But what's surprising to me is I'm used to the leaders being able to kind of sneak away and run away like Henry's been able to do. But usually you'll see second on back stay a little bit more together. But right now, like I said, it's pretty much. I'm looking at the intervals as like 1.7, 1.4, 1.7, 1.2, 1.6. It's very, very even speed distances between one another. As you didn't mention, so you can see James Ledford, he has gotten that spot. Or wait, no, who is it? I'm mixing up cars here. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. He was working on a different car that he was getting around. I think that may have been Scott Rankin. Yeah, it was. They just got around. So Thaddeus McMurray, actually, the red car up ahead of him. I was mixing up cars here. So yeah, he's still got a ways to go to try to catch that 37 machine.
And Carl Henderson and AJ Hobson were just having a good battle, which Carl Henderson has won that one for now. But they're both running very closely together.
Which could be big, though, because this puts now Carl as the first car 2 down. So should something happen to Josh Lassen, which, of course, I know Carl and Josh being teammates, I'm sure that's not really what Carl wants to have happen, but should that happen, that would then potentially put Carl in a position to be the one to get his free pass back should something happen to that 09 car. So it's always a little of everything to kind of have to fight for. And actually, while I say that, he's actually catching him on track here as well. As I say, he gets right in the dirty air of that 09 car. You could see he had to roll out of it there out of turn number 4. So yeah, I think right now, I think the aero wash is really tough on these guys. Because actually looking at lap times, as I say, and actually there goes AJ Hobson, gets the big run through. Last time by, actually, fastest car on track was after getting that damage fast repair put on his car, Michael Spell. He's got the fresher tires, Steve. So interesting to see here that tires actually might matter more than we talked about. Usually we talk about clean air track position, but tires might make a difference here tonight, because I say he's actually been able to separate himself from Henry Bennett, because Henry's about to put him I believe a 4th lap down, but Michael's actually just completely driven away from him right now, running about 3 to 4 tenths a second quicker.
Yeah, I guess there must be some fall off with these tires. I'm looking at Henry Bennett right now, and he's running mid to high 20 or like 25.7s, 25.8s. So let's compare that to what Michael Spell is running right now.
Yeah, 25.82 to Michael's 25.41, so 4 tenths of a second quicker for Michael. A 45 this time, so still about that 4 tenths. So it has dropped up about a half a second. I mean, when you think about it, it's like, you feel like, okay, half a second, yeah, that's not much, but it actually does make a big difference, especially if maybe someone tries a short pit strategy, Steve. I mean, maybe you pit within maybe a lap or two earlier than Henry. If you're a second and a half behind Henry, if you can pit those couple laps earlier, get those big numbers in, you could jump Henry in pit stop. So we'll have to see, that could come into play as well, because we're right approaching that pit window where someone can make that early pit gamble. Because right now we're on 32, coming to 33 next time around, and that'd be right about at that third distance mark, which we know they can make on fuel, especially with that yellow. So we'll have to see what the strategies are going to be from these drivers tonight.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Gael. I used that pitting early strategy to my advantage Sunday night in the Cup race, where the fall off was, if I remember correctly, I think about 2 seconds over a green run. So, pitting early, 2 seconds a lap is a lot. And if you pit, 2 laps early, that's 4 seconds that you gain on the person that didn't pit yet. It's a lot harder for them to make that up once they get their new tires that'll be fresher than yours.
Exactly right. And then of course you go back to the aero difference between some of these drivers as well. So if you can jump them in the pits and then they get into your dirty air, if you will, that might prevent them from being able to catch back up to you. So like right now I'm watching, this is one of our closest battles up front here, is with Craig Forsyth and Nick DeGroot. Actually, as I say that, we've got strategy going on here, and it's going to be Andrew Wood. He's going to be the first to hit pit road coming to lap 30 or at lap 35 here. So he's going to be the one to start the sequence off here in that 64 machine. So I think he's going to be that one we talked about to gamble. Of course, now for him, though, he needs this to stay green and cycle through completely. And it looks like Henry's not going to react here, Steve. So again, we talked about the potential difference of the new tires versus old tires. So we'll have to wait and see, as I think Matt Wagner, here comes Matt. He's going to react to this as well. And I think we're also seeing, Nick DeGroot coming in also here. So it is starting to kick off here now at 36. So 1 lap later, we see 3 drivers respond. David Leclerc hits pit road as well. Jim Brooks as well. So we're starting to see those pit stops. And here comes Henry Bennett going to hit pit road as well.
Okay, I think they'll be closer, but I think Henry Bennett with only 2 laps later.
2, yeah.
That would be, a second that Andrew Wood would have gained on him if it all shakes out and their pit stops were equal. And they were about 2 seconds apart when Andrew pitted. So I think Andrew should come out about a second behind him, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'll wait for everything to cycle through. I can say that Matt Wagner's just cycled out behind the 64 of Andrew Wood, which right now, though, our race leader's now cycled over to James Ledford as he's pitted under that caution, so he can go a few more laps. I think that few more is about to end now, because here comes that 48 machine, the Thaddeus McMurray. Now he's going to stay out, and this is where those guys that had to take those fast spurs, they would love to see a caution right now, Steve, because you can see over on the left-hand side, you've got a lot of drivers that are either on the tail end of the lead lap or maybe just 1 down instead of 2 down. So this would be the opportunity that they're hoping for. And actually, Steve, we're going to jump up front because we do have a lead change with that track position move. It is going to be Andrew Wood, who has been able to cycle out in front of Henry Bennett, and he did so by running his fastest lap of a race, 25:19, actually the fastest lap of the race. So put that track position out into the hands of that 64 machine.
Wow. That was huge.
I was saying he's the one that kicked it off. He pitted the earliest, like I said, only 2 laps, but it made the difference. So now we'll see, do the tires, can they make a difference? Because now that you mentioned Thaddeus McMurray, Jack Wallace, that's the last of our leaders to make their pit stops. I think there's still a few more drivers a lap down there trying to stretch this fuel number as far as possible. But so far, knock on wood, these guys have done a really good job on their in and out laps. So, and really, actually, I think the 2 that have really done the best on this are Andrew Wood and Matt Wagner, because they've really stretched out the lead now over Craig Forsyth. Craig's about 3.5 seconds off of Matt Wagner right now. So our top 3 right now about 1.2 seconds apart from one another equally.
I'm really curious right now to see if Henry Bennett can close the gap between himself and Andrew Wood, because as we saw in the first screen run, Henry Bennett was able to really stretch out a lead, and Andrew Wood was not able to close up on him. In fact, he lost time. So, is the aero push so bad for these guys, even when there's only 1 car ahead of you, that you're just going to keep losing time? Because right now I'm seeing Henry Bennett fall off.
It kind of has that look to it, Steve. It does look like it's going to be pretty much all aero tonight, potentially, with these guys. As we do see some big laps here and there from various drivers. I do need to mention pretty much now everybody has made their pit stop here under the green flag cycle, so pretty much everything is back to kind of how it was. And so you can see it's actually put a few drivers a lap down now as well. Thaddeus McMurray, Jack Walls, all going a lap down as well. So that puts Josh Lassen, unfortunately, now in the kind of the undesirable spot of now not being that first car one down. But you're right, though, Steve. I think this is kind of showing that I think that strategy that we've seen from that 64 here, Andrew Wood, kind of doing that little bit of a short pit, looks like it's going to work very well for him here on this run. And I think without a caution here, I think he's going to probably have to take that same gamble on the final pit stop, because he can't allow Henry Bennett to kind of do the same thing that he's been able to do to Henry here.
Yeah, I think Andrew's decided that he's going to just split this into 3 fairly equal segments, because he pitted on lap 35. We're doing 100 laps. He'll probably pit again around lap 70, I would guess.
Yeah, exactly right. So then you have to wonder, does anybody maybe try to stretch it that little bit extra? Maybe someone pits around, let's say 66, 67, try to undercut him. But yeah, right now though, Andrew Wood. So what we'll do here is let's run through the field and kind of see where everybody is. Obviously, been talking about Andrew Wood, started in second, now up into lead after that short pit strategy. Henry Bennett, he drops the second, about 2 seconds off of Andrew after everything's all said and done here. And then in that third spot, right where he qualified, the 11 of Matt Wagner, saying is actually holding pretty decent pace here with Henry. So only about 1.3 seconds off, so hasn't dropped a ton. And then Craig Forsyth, actually, he's been running big numbers right now, Steve. He's down, brought that gap down from about that 3 to 4 seconds now to about 1.5 in that 27 machine. Up to fourth, Nick DeGroot, talked about him starting 7th up into the top 5 here. And then behind him, we have Charles Teed in that 6th position, right where Charles qualified tonight. He's got about 2.5 seconds ahead, 3.5 seconds behind. That's going to be in the 7th spot of Jeff Hysong. He has gained 1 spot so far from where he's qualified. And we mentioned David Leclerc, big climber early on in this race, and he's still making great progress here. 9 spots gained up into the 8th position, about 1.5 seconds ahead of Jim Brooks. Started in 10th, is currently running in 9th. And then right now our highest climber, the number 48 machine, started in 20th, is up to 10th. That is James Ledford. And I believe James right now, last car on the lead lap here as they run. He's got about a half a straightaway lead over that 64 machine. And actually, to mention, Thaddeus McMurray just hitting pit road now. And I think, he's got some left front suspension damage, Steve. So something happened to Thaddeus there. He has to make an unscheduled pit stop here, unfortunately. That's going to gain a few drivers some more track position, like Jack Walls. That pushes him up into 11th position now in that number 83. And then Josh Lassen, we talked about him being involved in that lap 1 incident. He now moves up into that 12th spot. And then the remainder of the field here, you've got Michael Spell in the 14th position, soon to be 13th position, I believe. Just kind of depends on where everything cycles through. Michael's a bit off sequence, having to pit on lap 17 from his damage, though. So he'll be pitting again here not too far distant future. And then need to mention, of course, Yari Brupacher there in 14th, Carl Henderson in 15th, then Scott Rankin in the 16th position. And I believe then I think that goes then to AJ Hobson in 18th, and then Don Reedy in the 19th positions. I believe that's all the drivers we have still on track. And of course, the last of those guys, most of those were the guys that were involved in that lap 1 incident, unfortunately.
If you want to see what happened at Thaddeus McMurray, it was on lap 47 going into turn 1 when Henry Bennett went underneath him. They made contact heading into the turn. Not sure if it's because Henry was higher up on the track than Thaddeus expected, or if Thaddeus came down too much, but I'm surprised that Henry was as high up on the track as he was.
Let's go back. Let's try to take a look at it then, because I mean that's a big thing that happened there. So yeah, we'll pull it up right now so we can see it here coming through into turn number 3.
And it's also net code, at least on mine.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the dreaded netcode. Yeah, you're right. Though, say it looks like Henry kind of takes a bit of a later apex. Don't have the best of angles of it, but yeah. So now you have to wonder with that left front damage for Thaddeus. I mean, is the Henry's car, his right front may have taken a bit of a beating from that as well. You have to wonder if maybe he's got a little bit of wing damage possibly to that 007 car. Maybe he was able to get away with it or not. It's like you mentioned as well. If it was on the little bit of the net code, that might allow Henry to kind of get away with it. So we'll jump back live here though, because I was gonna jump to one of our closer battles on track right now, and that's including the 51 of Jim Brooks starting to try to chase down slowly but surely that number 67 of David Leclerc. It's down to about 0.6 of a second. And last time by, Jim was about a tenth quicker, but they're starting to get into some very dirty air. You see Craig there got really tight out of turn number 4. David got tight out of turn 4, had to roll out of it here, and that's allowing Jim to slowly but surely close the gap on that number 67 here.
Okay, here's something interesting. Henry Bennett, after that collision, is starting to run down Andrew Wood. So maybe it did something to make his car faster.
You never know with these things sometimes. It's always kind of crazy occasionally. But yeah, so right now we're still watching kind of about a half second between the 67 and the 51. So it's holding pretty steady between them two. Another closer battle coming up here is the number 50 of Charles Teed, starting to close the gap a little bit on Nick DeGroot here. It's down to about 0.9 of a second or so. But you're right though, so I'm going to jump now because I think Andrew Wood, either something's happened to Andrew and he's starting to drop the pace, or Henry's just really dropping the hammer down, because Henry's got this thing down to about a second now, Steve, like you had mentioned.
Yeah, he's closing about a tenth or two every lap. I'll tell you what I think he may have done. He was taking a much higher line around the turns than what Andrew was for most of this run so far. I wonder if that helped him save his tires compared to what Andrew was doing, because Andrew was running right down on the white line through both turns.
Yeah, it's very possible. So I'm looking at lap time. Actually, Henry drops a little bit further back this time, about 0.3 slower than Andrew. Maybe just caught some dirty air or something there. That's allowed Andrew to stretch it back out to about 1.3 seconds here. But actually, last time it was actually Matt Wagner was about 0.2 quicker than Andrew and about half a second quicker than Henry here. So I say Matt's not giving up on this as well. I say he's still in a pretty good striking distance. And I say this is where if these drivers had some, and some might do, say if they have some crew chiefs here, I mean, again, is it worth the gamble? Do you say, all right, Matt, you're about 3 seconds off the lead, you're 2 seconds off of Henry, and we saw Andrew Wood make a big gain on Henry, pit in early there, and then Henry hasn't been able to respond here. I mean, I think this might be a game of chicken of who pits first, knowing what they're I'm sure these drivers know what their full rich fuel number is. So I think they say, you know what, as soon as I'm in my number, or maybe even a lap earlier, and just try to save a little bit of fuel. Because, I mean, right now, look at the traffic that Andrew is in here. We'll kind of take a look up front. He's got 4 cars pretty evenly spaced in front of him. That's going to make it very tough sledding for that 64 machine as well. But I kind of think that this isn't that opportunity. I think you try to gamble here. Of course, puts you at risk if someone makes a mistake during the pit stops, though.
Wow, Henry Bennett gained 0.4 on that lap.
Yeah, I mean, he's visibly closer. When you look at the back, it's only, like I said, it's just that little bit here. So Andrew's seeing that car get bigger. They might be tiny mirrors on this car, Steve, but he's seeing that that interval close between the two of them. And like I said, even with all that too, Matt Wagner, he's also closing that gap a little bit. Still, he's down to about 2. Oh, close to the wall there through 1 and 2. For Andrew Wood, I think you're right though, Steve. I think those tires are starting to fall off of that 64, plus the dirty air in front of him. I think he's just, right now, I think Andrew Wood's in a pretty tough position here, and he's got to try to make this thing probably go about 8 to 9 laps, or actually I should say maybe, 6 to 8 laps more probably before we see him in pit road.
And I'm noticing also that lap times are very dependent on what line you take around the track. When Henry Bennett takes the middle to the high line, he loses a significant amount of time to Andrew when Andrew's running down on the bottom. When Henry Bennett runs down on the bottom right now, he's able to gain time every single lap.
And you could actually hear there from Henry, he cannot stay full throttle anymore, Steve. These cars are having to lift now. That's not something we're very used to seeing with these Indy cars at the 1.5 mile track. So like you said, tire is definitely playing a big factor. They're actually running about a full second slower than what they've been running on their best laps. So like I said, I mean, this just screams pit strategy to me. I think someone's got to make the gamble. The question is going to be where, when that is, and who it is. Like I said, I mean, if I'm a gambler, I mean, I gotta say I would lean towards a Matt Wagner, Craig Forsyth. I don't know if Craig's quite close enough yet to make that undercut happen, but I would love to see someone make that strategy and try to make something happen here.
Well, we're just about inside that pit window, aren't we?
I think we're really close. We're coming across here. It's 35 to go in this one. And like I said, I feel like I was hearing 33, 32 might be the range that they can go to the end. So like I said, does anybody maybe gamble and pit maybe that lap earlier? Then of course they have all these fuel mappings, Steve. They can go to a map 5 and save fuel if they're in the draft of the car because you can't make much ground anyway. So yeah, I mean we'll have to wait and see. Right now nobody's blinked as of yet, and that gap is actually grown back out to about 1.7 seconds. So Matt Wagner's actually starting to close a little bit more on Henry, and then really Craig Forsyth's been the one that's closing the gap on Matt here. So yeah, so I mean, I think, and even if it may not be a race-winning move, it might jump you, like if you're a Craig here, it could jump you from 4th to maybe 2nd if you can pull it off right. Actually, here comes Matt Wagner. He's going to be the one to gamble, Steve. Coming to 34 to go, I believe, at the line here. 33 to go at the line. It's going to be Matt Wagner. He's going to be the first to make the jump. Hopefully, got down to speed as an aggressive entry here. We'll have to watch his pit exit, make sure his pit time's okay. And I think right here you see wasting no time. Here's going to go the 64 of Andrew Wood. He's going to react to this. And I think also preventing that undercut from Henry Bennett. And Henry's going to follow right behind him.
Yeah, he made a rather abrupt and late move into the I forgot what you call it. The lane.
Oh, pit road. Oh, into the pit axis.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, so right now Craig's actually going to go the opposite strategy here. To see if this is Craig going to run a little further. We'll see if I think he's coming in this time, so he's going to run a lap longer than those guys. So we'll see. Again, we talked about the undercut, the overcuts, and now we'll see this Jeff Hysong. He's going to be the next in line here for position, and it's kind of looking a little bit like he's going to pit. Yep, here comes Jeff Hysong as well. So it's going to be a pretty quick succession here of pit stops, it looks like. I think nobody wanting to risk themselves getting kind of trapped behind here. So we'll say we'll wait for everything to cycle out, but right now it looks like it's going to hold pretty steady here. You see the Andrew Wood here coming out in front, but actually it's going to be the short pit, Steve. Matt Wagner, he jumps that number 007 of Henry Bennett, moves himself into that second position. Like you said, that gamble could pay off, and it does for Matt. It moves him up into that second spot.
Yep, definitely. He just didn't have enough of a time gain to take the lead. But
look at Craig Forsyth, Steve. He is right there. Can't quite take that number 11 car. He tried the overcut. It almost worked, Steve. He gets out right behind Henry and Matt there. But, I mean, for doing a green flag pit stop and going later than those guys, that's a big move by Craig, and it almost pays off there. Trying the alternate strategy. And actually, had one there on the pit, so he stayed green, so I think they towed. And it looks like that was the 67 of David Leclerc. So unfortunately, the bad luck strikes again for that 67 machine. As James Ledford, the last of our leaders, I believe, to make their pit stops. And that's going to cycle things now back to that 64 of Andrew Wood.
You know, I'm kind of curious if Craig Forsyth did something on his pit stop to gain him all that track position, like maybe not changing tires or something, because
I'm looking. No, actually, he just had a great pit stop, actually, Steve. It was an 8-second stop for him. Stopped in pit road, and the pit lane time was a 37:03 total pit lane time, which is over a second quicker than Henry, a second quicker than Andrew. But actually, I think the quickest pit lane time goes to Matt Wagner, 37:00. I think that we saw the aggression he had on pit entry, and I think that's what gained him that lead over Henry Bennett, because right now it's about a half a second between the two of them. And again, it was over a second difference between the pit lane time between the two. So I think Matt Wagner kind of credit himself for that really good pit entry, pit exit to be able to grab that spot.
Now the question is, he's got 2 laps older tires than what Henry Bennett has, but he's got the advantage of, his dirty air making it very difficult for Henry Bennett to catch him and get by. So is that just going to even things out?
I'm going to say yes. I think advantage is Matt Wagner here. I mean, unfortunately, he's now about 3 seconds off of Andrew Wood, who's just completely blitzed him on this opening run, which is what we saw him do really last time, too. But yeah, I mean, right now, I'd say advantage goes to Matt Wagner, though, over Henry, because, I mean, we saw this happen on the first stop. Andrew short pit Henry by about 2 laps, got in front of him, and then just Henry could do nothing until his next pit stop that they had, where he got close, but just couldn't do anything with them. So I think if you're Matt here, you're feeling pretty good about it. And you can see they're running very different lines right now. You see Matt doing a really late apex, Steve, here. Now, we'll hop on board and watch this here from that 11 machine. But it looks like a really late apex, kind of running the middle and then cutting it down on the middle to the exit here, as he actually runs the seam more so to 3 and 4, maybe running 2 different lines of 1 and 2 than 3 and 4. But yeah, so right now, I think things looking pretty good for Matt here to, I think, hold the second spot, depending on how the rest of this race goes.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
So what we'll do is, I'd say, since we have our pit stops complete, let's run through the running order once again. So it's still going to be Andrew Wood who holds on to the race lead in that 64. Didn't waste any time to pit after he saw Matt come in, and he was able to hold that lead. And as like I said, Matt Wagner was able to pit 1 lap earlier than Henry and Andrew, and he's able to jump Henry to grab that second position. Henry Bennett, our pole sitter, unfortunately now falls to 3rd, I say, after each pit stop having 1 driver jump ahead of him. Then you have Craig Forsyth, went for the overcut, almost paid off. It was right on those guys on the exit. A great pit stop for him. He is in 4th, and then our championship leader, another 2.5 seconds back, is Nick DeGroot. But he has Charles Teed hot on his heels. They pit on the same lap, Steve, on lap 68. It's about a half a second difference between the two of them. So we'll see if Charles can do anything, because he has been closing. But again, we'll just have to see once he gets too close if it starts to get that arrow wash that we've been seeing from a lot of these drivers here tonight. And then in 7th position, you have Jeff Heisong in that number 18. Jim Brooks is now up into the 8th position in that 51 machine. And then again, our highest climber here, James Ledford, is now a lap down in that number 48 machine, but has gained 11 spots from the drop of the green with just that 1 lap, 1 yellow. Jack Walls rounding out our top 10 here in that number 83 machine. Saying he looks like he's about to get put, I believe, 2 laps down here. So just showing the pace right now of our leaders here. And then next in line is going to be Josh Lassen in that 09, who was caught up in that lap 1 wreck, but has been able to keep that track position, able to get back out on track as quick as he could. And then we mentioned the other drivers, unfortunately, in much worse shape, including Scott Rankin in that 156 in the 12th spot, Carl Henderson in 13th, Michael Spell in 14th, who I believe still needs to make 1 more pit stop here before the end of this one. And we saw David Leclerc, unfortunately, had to take a tow there earlier. He is now down into 15th, and then that leaves AJ Hobson 16th, Thaddeus McMurray in 17th, and then Don Reedy in 18th. And like you mentioned, Steve, actually, I think Gary Brubaker, is actually retired. So that's going to be, like you said, on the point side of things, that's really going to hurt that number 49 car here tonight.
Yeah, it is, definitely. And I guess he must have had something else happen after he repaired his car from that first wreck, because I think he was only a couple laps down. I'm not sure why he would have retired otherwise.
However, Steve, we're going to go back, because we got to give some huge props here to Charles Teed. We talked about not being able to pass. Here goes Charles Teed, was able to get around Nick DeGroot, put himself up into that top 5. So it looks like he was able to just work the bottom here through 1 and 2, and able to hold on to that spot out of, I think it was pretty much took about the course of a lap, basically. So you can see there, Nick DeGroot cycles in right behind him. So good job by Charles to grab that position where we've seen it's been very difficult to pass. However, has not been able to shake off that 89 car. They hold pretty steady at about 0.3 of a second between one another. So I don't think Nick DeGroot's done chasing down that 50 car. See if he can return the favor towards the closing half of this race, because we're already, next time by, Steve, we're going to be down to 15 to go. Say this thing has been whizzing by here tonight.
Yes, it has. Only 1 caution so far, and as far apart as most of these guys are running, the chances of having another one pretty slim. Which sucks for the people that are 1 lap down.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so right now you're not very happy right now if you're those guys that got caught up in that lap 1 turn 2 incident or lap 1 backstretch incident, depending on which one we saw. Because we saw, like I said, there's about 2 or 3 separate of them. But yeah, I'm actually jumping back to this battle with Nick DeGrue and Charles Teed because we said Nick probably wasn't done, and he definitely is not. Looks like right now he's just kind of toying with Charles. He catches right up to him, but then he just kind of rolls off on the straightaways here, and then say, oh yeah, so right now he's kind of in a good position. And actually just got some info here from Yari on the YouTube chat here. Unfortunately, he crushed the wall a little bit around lap number 60, and then just the car just pretty much became undrivable. So he decided to park the car to kind of avoid, like I said, Steve talk about those potential yellows. I think to avoid bringing out a yellow there. So Yari, we hate it for you, man. I'll say, like I said, just kind of a tough night. Got worse there, obviously, for you, especially having to burn that fast car right off the bat. But definitely look forward to catching you the remainder of the season because I think you're going to be one to watch, especially just got to aim for that top 8 to hit the playoffs and then go after them those final 4.
Yep, definitely. Yari's shown speed pretty much everywhere. Yeah, just an unfortunate start to the race for him.
Yeah, so you'll have those nights from time to time, but I say, oh, big tight for Charles Teed. Oh, great reaction there from Nick DeGrue. Almost got into the back of Charles Teed. Charles got extremely tight. Pretty much had to, I think, honestly, maybe I even had to get on the brakes there to avoid that contact. And yeah, that could have been huge there between the two of them. Oh, and Steve, we just talked about, we actually do have a caution out on track here. And it wasn't for this one. I think there was something else that happened. May have been Scott Rankin. And that could change strategies here because now you're going to have the everlasting question, Steve. Do you want track position or do you want tires? Well, let's go back. Let's see what happened to Scott here in that number 156 machine.
He hit the apron. I think that's in 3 and 4, and just
just nicks the apron there. And then as soon as you do that, Steve, this car just going to step out completely on you. So we'll speed it up a little bit, but then you can see it goes right up into the outside wall, right across the path of traffic. Henry, as Henry Bennett speaks by, you can see a little bit of contact. I think James Ledford may have got a piece of that right before Nick DeGrue there got to him. We're going to jump back live here, Steve, because we've got pit stops and we've got strategies here. We've got a stayer outer, and we've got a lot of pitters here, and I think it's going to be a lonely pitter potentially. Sorry, lonely stayer outer. It's going to be Andrew Wood, though. He's going to hit pit road here in the 64, but Matt Wagner, he stays out. He's going full gamble here, and so we'll see now who's going to win this race out of pit road.
Boy, I'm ultra curious. I think this could be the winning move of the race for Matt, but we'll see. What Matt is going to have to do, he's going to have the advantage of clean air. He's going to have to run the low line through both turns, I think.
And it's going to be Andrew Wood. He's going to win the race off pit road. Steve was just able to keep that nose ahead. Henry had the number 1 pit stall, but let's say the difference in track position was able to allow Henry to stay ahead. Do need to mention the wave run, I believe, is going to go to James Ledford, or unless actually I think it may have gone to Jim Brooks. I'm not 100% sure here. So I do see Jim on the lead lap in that 51 machine in 8th spot, and he did pit here. So yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, we talked about these drivers. They were having to lift under the kind of later on in the run here. So is it tire wear? Is it tire temperature? Because if it's a temperature issue, you're right. This could put Matt in the catbird seat. But I have a feeling you look behind that 11 car, you see the 48 here of James Ledford. Who else is back there? I think you got Thaddeus McMurray's right there. You got the 67 of David Leclerc, Michael Spell. All these guys kind of like, come on, man, why didn't you pit? We were going to take that wave round. We wanted to get one of our laps back here.
Yeah, that's right, yep.
Matt having none of it, though, so... but let's say we're going to restart this thing, Steve, probably about, I'm going to say 6 or 7 to go, because we're on 9 to go. We don't have the 1 to go yet. So I think it's going to be 6 or 7 to go, just with having the lap traffic. I say there's going to be a few. Usually they give you an extra lap for those pit stops for the lap down cars. But what should happen here, though, is the drivers that pitted there, and actually it's already been happening. So I think we're on the 2 to go here. It's going to be Andrew Wood. He's going to cycle out right behind Matt Wagner. So I think we're going to restart this one with 7 to go here. And man, if you're Matt, you're going to need a great restart, and then you're just going to need to go run and hide for all you're worth on this potential final restart.
Yep, and it's definitely not going to be easy with the amazing talent that we have at the front of this field right now, and some of them, well, everyone but Matt being on new tires. I think at least for the first few laps, Andrew Wood, Henry Bennett, they're going to be able to pick any lane they want and possibly be able to stay almost flat out. So
Yeah.
what I could see happening if Matt has to back off at all, or his tires are just not gripping as much as those other guys coming off the turns. They may get a run on the high line, and he may have trouble stopping them from getting under him before he can move down.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Steven. And that's gonna be the thing is that if at any point Matt has, I think if he loses that clean air on this car, he's gonna be pretty much gonna get gobbled up. I think he's gonna go from first to eighth, honestly. Saying it's not a knock on Matt. It's just we've seen that the tires actually did matter here tonight. We saw a drop of probably about half a second to a full second. And the thing is, we talked about these cars as well. They have a really good draft up to about a second and a half. You pick up tow. And so, I mean, if you're Andrew Wood, like you said, if Matt can't keep this thing matted to the floor here, I mean, I think Matt's going to have to hope, honestly, right now that Henry and Andrew are going to start fighting for that second position that maybe gives him just enough breathing room. But it's all right now, it's going to be all about this restart, see what Matt can do. So we're going to watch out the back of that 11 car as the pace car is just about to tuck on in. And then Matt's got control of this restart, so we'll see how they go. We're going to restart this thing with 7 to go. No green light checkers, of course, so they want to get this done under conclusion. And we are down and away. Gets a nice little jump here into turn number 1. But again, he's got to get all the way down the backstretch, and this is where that draft is going to start picking up real big.
So then it's a question of how is his dirty air going to affect Andrew Wood behind him? Is it going to make it just too hard for Andrew Wood to close up? And I think I see Henry Bennett over there trying to make a move on Andrew.
Well, and so far, I mean, so good, honestly. I thought these guys were going to catch Matt a lot quicker in entering 3 than they have. So Matt's actually got a little bit better breathing room than I thought here. We're already at 6 to go, of course. So I'll say we're going to see how it all pans out. But right now you see Matt, he's playing defense here. He's kind of running the low side down the straightaway, try to break that draft here. So, I mean, Matt, like I said, it's a big gamble that he took. But right now, we got one up against the wall, I think, out of turn number 4. I think it was Nick DeGroot here. Just touched the wall. I can't tell if he's got suspension damage. That right front looks like it's pointed the wrong way, though, to me. And yeah, that car is pushing tight. He's definitely got significant damage to that car. He's going to have to try to limp this thing to the finish. But those drivers behind him are going to smell blood. They're going to try to get any spot they can off of him. But right now, Steve, that last time by, Matt was 2/10 quicker than Andrew Wood with those old tires. So right now, it looks like actually clean air is right now winning that battle between tires and air.
Wow, and he's actually, he's stretched it out a little bit.
Yeah, so you can see, Nick DeGroot falling back a little bit more. Jim Brooks actually able to jump Charles Teed and Nick DeGroot. Now he's up into that 6th spot. I'll say trying to keep an eye on things going around on track, but we're going to jump back up front here because we're down to 3 to go here at Homestead, Miami. And right now, Matt's holding that lead very steady. So we were nervous about it, Steve, but it looks like he knew exactly what he had in store for him. And he is just nailing these laps right now. Again, about just 0.08 of a second quicker than Andrew. But right now, Andrew's nowhere near close enough to make that big push to try to get to him here. We're going to jump back a little bit, though, because Charles T. Jim Brooks, they're having a good battle here. Now Charles wants to get that 6th spot back here. We got 2 to go. He grabs the spot. Jim's going to try to cross him over here down the front stretch, going back into the 1 here. 2 to go.
That's making me a little bit nervous by not taking the all the way down at the bottom of the track in 1 and 2. He's running about 2 lanes up.
And I say Henry Bennett, he's starting to close the gap on Andrew Wood. This could be a battle for the 2nd spot, but Matt Wagner, he's got 1 more to go here. He's got about a half a second margin. Henry just ran the fastest lap of the race, Steve, and he's only a 1/10 of a second off of Andrew. So I'm getting a little tight off of 2. Andrew's going to sneak away just the tiniest of bits here. But right now, it looks like Matt Wagner, he's just got 2 more turns to go, and he's going to get a big win here tonight at Homestead. As he comes out of turn number 4, it's going to be Matt Wagner getting the win tonight at Homestead over Andrew Wood, over Henry Bennett. And then it's going to be Craig Forsyth in 4th, Jeff Hysong 5th. Charles T does hold off that battle with Jim Brooks to grab the 6th position. And then for 7th, and then Nick DeGroot, he limps that car home to 8th. Not what he was looking for with the damage, but still, I mean, overall, a good top 10 result for him tonight in that 89. But I think what these guys are going to be talking about tonight after this race is going to be that pit strategy by that 11 car of Matt Wagner to get that win here tonight.
Yeah, definitely. It made us a little nervous, but that turned out to be the winning strategy. I love it. Great job, Matt.
Yeah, it's always exciting to get those wins here. As I say, they're hard to come by. We've talked about that time after time here. So I say I think he's going to pretty much do some done. I say, and I think Steve, he's got some practice with these things. That's looking like you can see he's got about near a perfect circle with that 11 car here. So I say he might talk about he doesn't get to win very often, but I feel like he either that or he's been practicing offline because I don't know if I could do what he's doing right now.
I know I can't. He's probably been practicing.
But yeah, great win for him. So we'll do is we'll pull up our final results here before we get to our interviews as we watch Matt go around the track here, do a little bit more of a victory lap. And it's going to be Matt Wagner over Andrew Wood, Henry Bennett there in third. Then Craig Forsyth, Jeff Highsong rounding out our top five. Then we mentioned that nice battle between Charles Teed, Jim Brooks. Charles Teed's able to hold on to that position. Nick DeGroot, a little bit of damage towards the end, but he still finishes in eighth. And then, of course, some of those drivers trapped a lap down there. A few probably mad at Matt for not pitting, including James Ledford, Jack Walls, 9th and 10th. Josh Lassen never got the cautions he needed to. Winds up in 11th. Carl Henderson right with him there in 12th. Then you got Michael Spell, 13th. David Leclerc, AJ Hobson, Thaddeus McMurray, Don Reedy, and Scott Rankin. And then, unfortunately, the two drivers that had pretty much the worst nights of everybody else were Yari Brubacher and Jimmy Drynan there in 19th and 20th, respectively. So with that, Steve, we've got some drivers to chat with, and we're going to kick it off with our third place finisher, our pole sitter tonight in that 007 of Henry Bennett. So we're going to pull Henry on in here, get a word with him tonight about tonight's event. So obviously Henry started off good, got the pole. And then from there, I'm guessing it kind of felt like Groundhog Day for you each pit stop where you pit the first time by a little bit after Andrew. Andrew's able to jump after you. We talked about obviously the dirty air plenty during the broadcast. And then the second stop, then you see kind of the same thing with Matt sneaking around you. But I mean, how tough was it to try to do anything with that dirty air? Because I mean, it seemed like you got to about that second and a half, and then the car just wouldn't behave for you anymore, and just nothing you could do. It seemed like could help you out there. I mean, how was it for you behind the wheel? And I mean, what were you trying to kind of dial out some of that dirty air?
Yeah, I was fine in clean air, obviously, building up what I thought was a decent lead. Yeah, in dirty air, I just didn't have the practice, so I only got managed to get into the session with 15 minutes to go. So yeah, I didn't have the practice in dirty air, so I didn't really know what I was doing. And it seemed worse on new tyres in dirty air than it did on old tyres. But yeah, I mean, as always, I always try and go long on the fuel, because when you tend to get cautions around the pit stops. So I was trying to avoid that, but that does put you at the vulnerable to having people undercut you, which, I mean, I think it was 2 or 3 laps. In 2 or 3 laps, Andrew managed to undercut me over 2 seconds. So yeah, hats off to him. And obviously Matt did a similar thing on the second round of stops. I mean, I was tempted to pit early on those second stops, but it's always my luck when I do pit early. There tends to be a caution just after my pit stop, so I didn't want to take that risk. But yeah, it was tough in the dirty air. It was a strange handling with the car, so I've got myself to blame for the lack of practice. Also got myself to blame for the way the car handled. But yeah, it was strange because you want to take a high line, but then the car seemed to wash out even more when you had clean air on the high line than it would if you had dirty air on the low line. So I would have need to have tried this set for a bit longer before I really understood what to do.
Henry, what kind of factor do you think that tire wear played in making it more difficult once you were not out front?
Well, as you saw at the end, new tires weren't all that great in clean air, so in dirty air either. So I don't. In fact, I think the tires were slightly worse when they're brand new, and they took a few laps to warm up really. But yeah, I couldn't do anything in with new tires, old tires.
It
So
was really interesting to watch, the between you and Andrew on those first couple runs. You pulled out on that first run with the clean air. You just kept running away from everybody, and I kind of thought you got far enough that maybe Andrew would be able to start pulling back, and he really wasn't able to. And then the same thing happened in reverse after Andrew short pitted you and got out in front. So it's just kind of surprised me, I guess, even with just two cars and not a lot of other cars close to you, how difficult it was for the car that was in the dirty air.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, even like I say, even when Andrew was out of the range of dirty air and myself on the second stint, it seemed like once you damaged the front tires, you just lost the speed and you lost the front grip, and it wouldn't really recover. But yeah, now knowing how the race went, now I wish I was in the first stint. I was running map 5 for half that stint, saving fuel so that I could go long and avoid any potential cautions, like I say, under the pit cycle. But yeah, now I wish I'd just gone flat out that entire stint and built up a much bigger lead. That would have helped. Yeah, I mean, because Andrew only just pipped me on pit exit, a bigger lead and another second, and I probably would have been able to manage to keep hold of first. But yeah, the caution at the end, though, I know through Andrew, I mean, and myself, we thought we'd have no trouble overtaking Matt on his 30 lap old tyres, and ours, 25 odd lap old tyres, and ours were brand new. But yeah, clean air was everything, it seemed.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. We were sitting on pins and needles wondering how that would play out too.
Yeah, it was. As Steve's right, I say and then you mentioned it almost seemed like for you guys it was almost a little bit worse on the new tires than the old at some point. And I say that was actually the other question. Like Steve mentioned, the tire wear was it wear or was it more just temperature maybe that was building up in those tires? I don't know if you had any time to look during the race after your pit stops, but had you noticed to see if they were wearing a lot, or were they just maybe getting really hot and maybe that's what it was? Because like you said, some of the behaviors of the car you're talking about it was definitely, like you said, kind of an odd one for tonight. It seems.
Yeah, I did have a quick glance at it. Obviously, my front right was more worn and hotter than the right rear, but not dramatically so. So I think it was a combination of wear and heat. But I think I think the heat comes first and the wear comes afterwards. The wear is like heat is the problem and the wear is the symptom. Let's say.
Okay, I got you. But I mean, still overall a good result for you tonight. Obviously, you'll close the gap that little bit over on Nick because they didn't have the night he was looking for. Obviously, and of course, still plenty of racing to go before we get to those final 4 races. So I'm sure right now, kind of keep your eyes open on the top 8 is kind of job number 1, I'm sure. And then of course, then once you get into that top 8 for those final 4, then kind of do what you guys do best and kind of put on a show to try to get that title here again tonight. But I say strategy didn't quite pan out for you tonight, Henry. But like you said, you never know. I mean, you could have been the one in the catbird seat, like you said, should have yellow have come out in between those pit cycles. So I say it's a gamble, and that's why they call it that. I say sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. So still, I mean, overall, an awesome result for you tonight, Henry. Getting that 3rd place. So definitely want to give you the floor here. Any thanks and shouts you like to give?
Oh yeah, as usual, shout out to Jimmy and Matt for putting on a great league. You guys for the great broadcasts, and yeah, my team Powerslide Motorsports.
So well fought race tonight. Like I said, strategy didn't quite pan out how you hoped to, but so there's going to be other opportunities throughout the course of the season where they hopefully will turn your tide. So I'll say definitely always a pleasure to be able to chat with you, Henry. So great job tonight, though, and look forward to chatting with you again here soon, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, great run, Henry.
All right, so then we got to jump over to our 2nd place finisher, and that is going to be the number 64 of Andrew Wood. Andrew qualifying 2nd, finishing 2nd tonight. You got the undercut done on Henry in that first pit stop. And then we saw Matt jump in a little early on the 2nd one, just that 1 lap. Then we saw you in the next time by. Was that in reaction to Matt, or is that to make sure that Henry didn't have an opportunity to jump under you? Or I mean, take us through your thought process on actually, I'd say on the first 2 green flag pit stops for what the game plan was to try to get that track position there tonight.
Both times I ran my car out of gas, so I went long both times. I assumed that because I came in early on the first stop that I had to do a bunch of fuel saving on the second one. So I waited. I put myself in a fuel mix and did the best I could to stay out as long as I could to make sure I could make it to the end. That was kind of my concern through the whole thing. So I wasn't really paying attention to when the other guys behind me were stopping.
Okay, so yeah, so actually you're so maybe you're running a different mixture. It sounds like than maybe Henry and those. Like I said, Steve and I mean, we we thought for sure it was just gonna be like it was a pit strategy. Like, okay, if I pit at this point, I know I can make it to the end, but I want to try to basically undercut Henry, because we saw there was a little bit of time drop off, probably about half a second or so over the course of the run. It seemed like, of course, differed based on dirty air and such like that. Was that something you were kind of looking at too? Was your lap times kind of at the beginning and then as the runs went on, or was it pretty much just you were just going until you absolutely had to pit there?
No, it was just basically trying to save as much fuel as I could so I could see how the final stint would play out. Yeah, like I was trying my best to play around with different fuel mixtures and different lines with the guys that were ahead of me. So, I like watching the other guys that I was racing with wasn't a concern for me tonight. I knew that just the way that the car is set up, it was very difficult to get to actually race or get by someone kind of thing. So as long as I was able to get by lapped cars, that was kind of my focus for tonight, which is kind of different from what probably others were trying to do. If I could put a lapped car between myself and Henry or Matt or whoever else I was racing, um, it'd be much more difficult for them to figure out how to get by if I was able to get by. So it's kind of like putting a buffer in between us a little bit, if possible. Um, and then, of course, I was trying to catch Henry the first, and it just didn't really work so well. And just based on that, that's what told me that the dirty air was really something. So as long as I got the lead on the second stint, I could kind of do whatever I want, run whatever mixture I want, whatever line I wanted, and Henry probably wouldn't catch me unless I really ran the top, which I did a couple times just to try and see what I could do with traffic. But once I knew that the side-by-side racing was probably not really a thing tonight, that's when I focused on trying to put traffic between us to try and get the gap.
Andrew, did you short pit on purpose that first time though, the first green flag stop, so you could get the lead, or had you actually run it out of fuel there?
I pit one lap before I was out, so I got the call with 2 laps to go, and I came in, and I really hustled the pit entry too. Like I practiced a bunch of them in practice just to see what it was, but I really, really hustled it, and I nailed it perfectly.
We were doing the math, trying to figure out if you'd take the lead or not, and just if you'd had equal pit stops, I kind of felt like you might still be a second behind, but when you came out ahead, I was like, wow, that was a great move.
Yeah, I had gotten the 2 laps to go call. And again, like the first stint, my focus was trying to run Henry down as best I could. Thought I could, but I was kind of reeling him in initially, and then the gap kind of settled back out again. There was a car ahead of him that he was trying to catch at one point, and I think that kind of screwed up the whole entire spacing between us. So, yeah, I went from there into just kind of like, now I'm going to play around with different lines and see what kind of lines went out and stuff. And that's what I realized, that the shortest line around did it, and you really couldn't try and get any sort of advantage on the car ahead of you.
Yeah, we were noticing that was definitely the fastest line. Did you find at all that taking a higher line was helpful in saving tires, or was that not even a factor?
I don't know. Actually, I can't give you a clear answer to that. I think that the tires weren't so much of an issue that if you ran the top for as long as you wanted to, that something would happen. because I always felt confident no matter what part of the stint I was on, if I could run the wall, that the car would turn. I had a couple of moments where I thought I missed it, and I kind of took an awkward entry that I really didn't know where I come out on the exit. But for the most part, if you kind of like pinned where you wanted your entry and your exit to be, you get there, no matter what the tire wear was.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like I said, the differing lines, and I say what worked, what didn't work, and everything there. I mean, obviously a lot of strategies throughout the race on the pit stops, whether or not they're forced by fuel or like I said, or
That C was trying to say. So old tires. So Matt got the lead initially, and I was able to close in like a lot of time just running the wall, whereas he was running the optimal line laps there, because if the race was like 3 or 4 more laps, you might have seen that the fresher tires might have been able to do something. So it's just kind of a shame that I figured that out too late. I didn't really think of it initially, and I probably should have. And the whole thing was just kind of a strange like twist at the end of the race that the guy with the super old tires was able to kind of just drive whatever line he wanted to get it. So it was very cool to see how I needed to get creative in order to figure it out.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think it definitely threw us for a loop too. We didn't think there was any chance that Matt would hold you guys off, because we saw that the fall off was probably about a half a second or so over the course of the run on the tires. But yeah, like you said, I'm sure initially you guys are probably thinking like, okay, we got this. So well, he's a sitting duck here, and then it's like, wait a second, he's actually got pretty good pace. And like I said, then you start kind of looking around and move a little bit. I'm sure, like I said, that kind of throws things off. Or if you had just maybe a couple more laps to see what you guys could have done. But I mean, overall, still a great fight you guys did tonight to like I said, the undercut on Henry, and then of course that late yellow kind of throwing everything for a loop, and just I mean, it was a lot of stuff going on, but just a great job though tonight here, Andrew, to still grab that second spot tonight. It's obviously not what you wanted to get, but a great result for you tonight. So definitely want to give you the floors. I know you got plenty of great sponsors on that car. Want to let you get an opportunity to give a thanks and shouts to those guys.
Yeah, I'll make it fast. I took some extra time tonight, so just want to say thanks to you guys for
any of them. Basically, if Andrew or Henry could get to him at that point, he was going to be a sitting duck, because then he's going to be in the dirty air with the old tires, and like I said, he might fall all the way back to that 8th position. But I mean, just the laps you were running there, like I said, with the old tires, we were even asking Henry at one point whether or not was it tire wear, was it tire temperature, because we're thinking, well, maybe this caution, maybe it brought the tires back into a good temperature, where then you were able to kind of hustle them again towards the end of the race, because obviously we knew it was going to be an aero sensitive track, probably a little bit more than some were hoping for, obviously, but I mean, that's the nature of the beast with these cars from time to time, unfortunately. But I mean, were you pretty much dead set, like, okay, I'm going to do this pit strategy as well? Because the other part too is we saw you short pit the last pit stop, the last green flag stop, and we're able to jump in ahead of Henry. For Andrew, he had mentioned that he didn't, the first pit stop, it wasn't a strategy, it's just he had to pit on fuel. For you, was it a fuel number, or was it you saw what Andrew did and you want to see if you could do the same thing on your side?
I can do the same thing. If that would have gone green the rest of the way, I could have made it. I wasn't short at all. I started to catch him little by little when we're getting toward where that yellow flag flew. I don't know if he was saving at all. I couldn't tell. He probably was extreme saving, because he had an extra. Maybe he had an extra lap to make up. No, he pitted after I did, didn't he?
Yeah. So we were thinking that you actually short pitted him to try to jump him and Henry, maybe under green flag pit stops.
So yeah, I was extreme fuel saving, and that secret I don't want to get out.
We heard nothing.
Yeah, I don't know what you just said.
But but that being said, man, just a great result. To be able to pull off the strategy like you did on the end, staying out, being the only one to stay out too. It's like, I'm sure it's kind of one of those, your heart's in your throat and just hoping you make the right call. Obviously tonight you did. And saying that's going to get you the win here tonight at Homestead. So I know those always feel good. So definitely want to give you the floor here for any thanks and shouts like to give for that win tonight.
Well, I'd like to shout out to your co-host, your buddy, Steve Goshak on a third place finish last Monday night. Good job there, Steve. I watched it to the end, and you did a fairly well job. And
Thank you, Matt.
well, I'd like to thank Area 51 for all the hard work. Henry with putting all the steps. Just flat out, I'm just ecstatic that just happened. That I won tonight. It's I like to thank all the drivers out there for trying to keep it clean and green. And welcome back our in-race admin, Kyle Ramsey. He's over to COVID. I'm glad to have him back, but his throat's a little bit sore. But best well and wishes for him.
Yeah, I say well earned, deserved Matt win, Matt tonight. I say obviously we know you a little bit better than maybe some of those that are watching. Of course, I say it's obviously also a really nice way to make up for unfortunately having to miss that race on Saturday. But as you know and we all know, family definitely comes first in that. So I'll say same thing for us. Hopefully everything's going well for you over there as well. But man, just enjoy this one. I say like I said, hard fought one. And saying these ones are they're hard to come by when you've got Andrews and Henrys and Craigs and company. I mean, you've got some tough competition, but I will congratulate you on being the first oval winner this season, other than Nick DeGroot as well. So that's some pretty tough company to compete against.
Yeah, no dirty underwear for me.
I'm okay with that.
Now I just one more thing. I just wish I can win on Sundays here at Area 51. God, buddy. That's another goal I'm going to check a mark, get me off here.
We'll get you a Super Speedway Ace package at some point. It's only a matter of time. I said we know you got second not too long ago, so it'll get there. So you just it's like tonight. You got to get the luck at the right time, the strategy, the track position. I say it all comes out together. But Matt, great job tonight. Enjoy this one. I'll say it's a lot of fun for Steve and I to be able to call you to the checkered there. Saying I know you'll be hungry to get some more here. So enjoy this one. But we'll look forward to catching you next week, sir.
All right, guys. You have yourself a good night.
You too, Matt. Proud of you. That's a great run tonight. Great strategy.
Thank you, sir.
Gael, I'm sorry to cut out early. I have a little bit of an issue here, so I enjoyed this as always and look forward to working with you next week.
Sounds good, sir. You go take care of that button.
Thank you.
All right, I was saying that's it for us as well here. So really want to thank you all for supporting us here at Green White Checker TV. Of course, also got to thank all the partnerships as well. Of course, ESTV allowing us to broadcast this over on their YouTube and their Facebook, and of course then they're able to re-air it on Roku and other devices. Definitely check them out as well at ESTV. And of course, couldn't be done as well with our partnership with Dark Horse Racing. It's a lot of fun to race with those guys. I say they just finished up their season, so if you're looking for some more Indy action, they run the DW12s on Wednesday nights. So check them out as well. It's a great group of guys over there as well. So for us, that will do it. Congrats again to our top three: Matt Wagner, Andrew Wood, and Henry Bennett. And so we'll be back on Green White Checker TV on Thursday night for the Super Speedway Truck Series with TW Motorsports there. Until then, hope you have a wonderful evening. Take care and have a good night, everyone.